now call the Common Council meeting of September 1st, 2020 to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Here.
Lorik.
Here.
Dukniak.
Here.
Toman.
Here.
Gale.
Here.
And Alderman Guzikowski is excused.
This time I'd like the city clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance first. Andrew, you want to start us off?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to ask the city clerk to read in the notice of video conferencing for this meeting.
Certainly. The City of Oak Creek is authorized to hold this public meeting remotely during the COVID-19 public health emergency. This meeting being conducted via Zoom video conference with telephone conferencing capability was duly noticed per the City of Oak Creek Municipal Code and statutory notice requirements more than 24 hours in advance of a meeting. Members of the public had been advised of the options for participation via direct mailing to property owners. This meeting may also be viewed on the city's YouTube page, the link for which was contained in all aforementioned notice methods. The meeting recording will also be accessible on the city's YouTube page within 48 hours. When unmuted, all participants must state their name and address for the record, then proceed with comments or questions. Questions and comments may also be entered into the Q&A function within the Zoom webinar control panel. Staff and/or the moderator will monitor this function during the meeting and provide the information requested. There's one or more public hearing, end of notice. There's no public hearings tonight, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Approval of minutes of 8/18/20. If everybody please take a look. And you're satisfied there's no errors, omissions? We'll move on it.
Kirkowski make a motion to approve the minutes of August 18, 2020.
Dukniak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Item 4 is a resolution for appreciation to Mary Jane Trade, who retired as our recreation manager. Catherine, would you please read that?
Certainly. Resolution number 12181090120, a resolution of appreciation to Mary Jane Trait. Whereas Mary Jane Trait began her employment with the City of Oak Creek in September 1985 as a part-time swim instructor. And whereas during her tenure, Mary Jane was an American Red Cross certified instructor in a variety of areas, including CPR and AED, first aid, babysitting, lifeguarding, and water safety. And whereas on June 8, 1995, Mary Jane's position was advanced to permanent part-time status as she became the recreation supervisor. And whereas in 1996, Mary Jane became a Learning Resources Network certified program planner in recreation, giving her additional skills in learning and teaching, needs assessment, program development and analysis, budgeting and program pricing, marketing and customer service. And whereas on March 10th, 1999, Mary Jane's position as recreation supervisor was upgraded to full-time. And whereas on March 1st, 2012, Mary Jane's position as recreation supervisor was reclassified to recreation manager. And whereas during her tenure with the city, Mary Jane was responsible for managing the countless recreation programs offered by the city, providing enrichment for young and old alike. And whereas Mary Jane assisted in modernizing the recreation registration process and revamping the department's T-ball and camp programs. And whereas Mary Jane became certified in Tag Teach, a method of teaching with acoustical guidance, and implemented it in the summer camp program. And whereas in 2015, Mary Jane helped transition the recreation department and the successful senior program, the Forever Young Club, to the new Civic Center. And whereas Mary Jane assumed the production of the recreation guide in the Acorn, learning to use Adobe InDesign and becoming an expert in the software and the city's brand. And whereas Mary Jane, without fail, brought donuts to her staff every Friday. And whereas Mary Jane was a very effective employee during her years of service with the City of Oak Creek, answering many calls and providing immeasurable service to the community. And whereas effective July 31st, 2020, Mary Jane retired from her position of recreation manager with the City of Oak Creek, completing over 35 years of service 21 years of it full-time to the city of Oak Creek. Now therefore be it resolved that the best wishes for good health and happiness be extended to Mary Jane and her family in her retirement years. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and the city clerk be and is hereby directed to transmit a suitable copy thereof to Mary Jane Trait. Passed and adopted this first day of September 2020.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Would anybody like to speak for Mary Jane on her behalf?
Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. For almost 18 years, I had the pleasure of interacting with Mary Jane and her staff as the Oak Creek Community Center was the host site for that Forever Young Club. So 35 years, that is a heck of a run. So Mary Jane, thank you so much for your service to our community. Best wishes on a healthy and happy retirement.
Thank you, Rich. Anyone else? Just very quickly, Mary Jane, it's mentioned she had, just numerous contacts throughout the city. I mean, she really helped put together some of the rec programs that affected a lot of the children here for the last 35 years that came up and went on to do other things. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is her passion for dogs. She is really a key player in what set up Dog Days, one of our bigger events here in the city, and for that we'll forever be thankful. Her skill, knowledge, and passion of the animals is really what helped spur the idea. So again, can't thank Mary Jane enough for her service. It was just a pleasure to work with. So we appreciate that, and as Rich said, we wish Mary Jane a long, happy retirement and well-deserved. So motion, please.
I'll move to approve resolution 12181-09012, a resolution of appreciation to Mary Jane Trait, retiring recreation manager.
Dukniak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Under new business, item 5 is informational and is a COVID-19 measures for the city events and public services informational. Is Darcy with us? Is she on tonight?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Or is that
I'm
a
on.
discussion for you, Andrew?
Am I on?
Oh, there's Darcy.
We can take this conversation wherever it goes, but we do have Darcy and Kristen to answer any questions, and I thought having Kristen on board could help provide our itinerary in terms of special events and other things we have going on in the city for the rest of the fall here, and talk about some safety measures if that's the pleasure of the council. We can also kind of in the context of a public health update, look at where we're at in the community. So we can really take this conversation wherever we want it to go. Certainly we have a full slate of events and other public services, whether that be in the library or the recreation department for the rest of the year. So we can kind of see where this goes with this, and the staff would be happy to facilitate any discussion or Q&A.
Okay.
I actually made a PowerPoint presentation, if that would be helpful, just to give an overview of what we've done with events and what we're looking to do moving forward.
I think that would be great, Kristen. Thank you.
Okay, I will go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so first I wanted to give everyone a timeline for our city events. Event season is generally June through October during the warmer months. The events that were scheduled for June, we pushed back to late July and August so that they'd have a late summer, fall start, just to evaluate the situation. The farmers market stayed as scheduled because we felt with the layout, we were able to place vendors on the edges of Drexel town squares and attendees could use as their weekly shopping trip. The event was a little bit higher attendance. We pushed back and we worked with the health department on event guidelines. We have been meeting with the health department monthly to evaluate the situation and how we can best execute events. And we worked with Darcy on some outdoor event guidelines. As the event organizers, we are implementing strategies to keep all participants that are not in the same household at least 6 feet apart. We are changing the event layout to minimize crowding and allow for adequate social distancing. We are moving seating to allow that 6 feet of distancing between household groups. And we're also providing social distancing reminders through signs and other communication methods. We are encouraging that individuals wear a mask and that all sick individuals stay at home and not attend the event. We are providing hand sanitizers for both vendors and attendees, and we are commonly cleaning touch points at the events. For event attendees, we are asking that if they are sick, they stay home, to cover any coughs and sneezes, to wear a mask, and also use hand sanitizer or wash hands frequently. For vendors at the event, we usually give them instructions a few weeks prior to them attending. If they are feeling sick, we ask that they do stay home, that they only have one staff person handling payments, that they only have one staff person at the booth to handle the products, and that they're disinfecting surfaces regularly. We are reminding them and the customers to maintain the 6 feet of social distance and that they also wash their hands regularly. One example that I wanted to share, we actually had a beer garden a few weeks ago, and some of the procedures that we had in place, we did only use plastic cups, so we did not have any pint glasses on site, and we asked that attendees not bring their own pint glasses, so we're not passing that between the bartenders and the vendors. We did have on-site signage. We asked people to wear a mask when they are ordering a beer, but they were able to take that off when they were at their table with their group. In the advertising, we did encourage attendees to wear a mask, and we also had tables that were 6 feet apart. And for a recap, for the events, we pushed community events to late summer and fall. We're meeting with the health department regularly. We are selectively choosing the event activities that happen and take place. All the events that are happening are outdoors. We're not having anything inside, and we are monitoring the seating areas and the vendors that are on site. And we also have volunteers dedicated to disinfecting the event venue. Okay, yeah, if you guys had any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, question from Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District, and this would be for Darcy. Darcy, I know we do the contact tracing, so has there been any indication that the farmers markets or dog days at Drexel had provided any type of spike in cases in our community? Or are you able to determine that through the contact tracing?
Thanks for the question. It is very hard to determine that. We rely on information provided to us from clients, and what we find is that when people test positive, they're often hesitant to share a lot of information about the activities that they've done in the weeks prior, knowing that maybe the guidance is that they avoid some of that and that they had been out doing things. So I can't pinpoint any specific cases tied to those events, but I'm not sure how much that means given the difficulty of determining that.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Steve?
Alderman Kirkowski, 1st District. I had an opportunity to sit down with Andrew yesterday. How much do you want me to repeat of our meeting? I mean, is there anything that you're going to say that
Just hold all the insults I hurled at you. Just hold all of those because they were reciprocated.
No, let's hear those.
I didn't bring
They
any.
were reciprocated, by the way. So
Yeah, I didn't bring any.
no, I think everything's.
I didn't bring any barbs or anything to throw at people.
I think it was your idea to have a chat about this and really kind of regroup as a unit of councilmen and talk about what we've learned and what our next steps may be leading into the fall and winter. So
because what I talked about with Andrew was when we had these issues back in March or so, and what we were going to do, and we said let's not close down summer. We all agreed to keep summer open, and back then we meaning everybody did what we thought was the right thing to do, and then as the summer went on, we didn't really change anything. We just kind of just motored along, and folks did what they did with their events and stuff like that, and I felt that we didn't readdress some of the smaller things that we should have. For example, sorry to beat a dead horse here, but we didn't open the splash pad when I felt, and some people who contacted me felt, that we should have opened the splash pad because their perception was you're having farmers markets, you're having beer gardens, the skate park is open, but you can't open the splash pad. And one of the things I talked with Andrew was, which fell on deaf ears when I mentioned it before, was Waukesha had signs at their baseball fields and their playgrounds that expressed the caution, you know, however it was worded, and at the end of it, it said, use at your own risk. Now, I thought that would have been a good idea at the splash pad, and then of course Andrew brought up the cost issue with regards to the bathrooms, and it's like, well, because they weren't open here, all right, so you put on a sign somewhere, no public restrooms available, whatever you want to do. But there was this perception that we were doing one things that generated money, but we weren't doing any things that was for the community. So, but it is what it is. So as we move forward into the fall and the winter, you know, I like what Kristen did, because I went to the farmers markets, and yeah, I mean, you can't force people to stay 6 feet apart. You can't force them to wear their masks. All you can do is ask them to do it. So, and I think for the most part, you know, at the farmers markets, yeah, a little bit. At the food truck, not so much, but it is what it is. But I just want to move forward in the fall and winter and say we want to keep having these events. And if we have to create additional signage out there to remind people what to do versus canceling them outright because we're not thinking outside the box. For example, we still want to have our Christmas tree lighting, and we want to be able to facilitate that and have people come down and enjoy the evening. And I still would like to have the celebrations committee consider having fireworks that night over launching it just north of Drexel Town Square. I'm willing to help facilitate that. Whatever they want help with that, I can try and help them out. But I just don't want us to outright cancel stuff without taking a look at all the good things that we've done and not thinking outside the box, or having these events and not thinking about signage and how we can make people still feel comfortable to come down. Because quite frankly, if you don't feel people don't feel comfortable, they're not going to come down, right? I mean, we may have a hot Christmas tree lighting, and normally we get, you know, several hundred people, but they may not want to come down this year because of the COVID issue. That's fine. So that's why I wanted to have a discussion, is as we move forward, what we've learned, what we did, what we've learned, and how we can move forward to just keep the fall and the winter open. As far as indoor events, I don't have an answer for that, but the outdoor events, I think we did well. I mean, the rec department opened up Abendschein Park to baseball teams, and I got to tell you that there were teams who normally play at Milwaukee County Parks on their baseball fields, and they didn't open their ball fields. And they were at Abendschein almost nightly, I think, from when I drove by. There were Milwaukee teams that normally play in Milwaukee that were playing at Abendschein because we opened up our ball field to let them play ball, which I think was a great thing. I mean, I don't have the stats, but I think it seemed like every night they had teams out there playing. So that was a good thing. It's a good thing to open that up. So I think that's all I got, is I just don't want to poo-poo stuff because we're afraid to do it. We did well. And
well, a couple of things to keep in mind too. You know, certainly there is zero playbook out there for how 2020 is unfolding, whether it be in regards to special events or school or anything else, local government, private practices, places of work. There's certainly no playbook. So we can't pretend to know exactly what all 7 of you may be thinking at one time. And now we have it's just really politically dichotomous in the nation where, you know, if you have events, there's a lot of people that don't like it. If you don't have events, there's a lot of people that don't like it. So in a lot of regards, you know, we took cues from the council. I think we've done a really good job of holding events and not canceling summer. and trying to do them safely. But as you know, we have not been, as I don't think a lot of communities have, actively policing the situation at these special events and gatherings. They are outdoors. People who are comfortable, come. People who aren't comfortable don't come. And I don't think that we've been necessarily deficient in how we've structured these events. And I'm not suggesting that's what Alderman Kurkowski is suggesting, but I just thought I'd bring it up for discussion. I don't think we've been deficient. I think we've answered the call of the council to provide a place for people to recreate this summer, this year, because we know that's all positive things for people's well-being. Really, it is. At least psychologically at this point. So we can always shift gears and do things a little bit differently. But one of the things we would want to take away as a staff from this meeting is, what, if anything, do you want us to exactly do differently? I almost just called him Kurkowski over here. Alderman Kurkowski, had given a couple pointers on things we could do, but I'm still hearing you want to forge ahead and provide these places or opportunities for recreation in the community. So if we come away with at least that as a check-in with the council, we can continue to, manage these best practices for putting them on and
I think there was
even add to them.
one thing that we talked about too was the trick or treat night. And obviously we don't do anything as a city other than say this Sunday night between these hours are the designated time of trick or treat. And I'm sure we're going to have the comments, well, are you still having trick or treat? I think it ought to be canceled. I think this or think that. Well, I think we use our social media platform and we say, look, this is just the night that we've set aside for trick-or-treating in the city. If you choose to do it, go for it. If you choose not to, fine. If you don't want to participate, make sure your porch light is off, because I don't know how to hand out candy with this issue. I put it in a big bucket and let kids pull it. I don't know. So but we just let folks know, yeah, we're still going to have it, but it's on you. It's your decision, because we're just giving you a time frame to do it. And that's just one example, Just thoughts, really,
Anyone else? Thoughts? Ken?
Just to chime in a little bit and kind of pile on what Andrew and Steve said. I really do appreciate the staff's efforts here to diligently plan and try and account for life in middle of summer, late summer 2020. It's obviously a learning curve and an interesting dynamic for everyone. We as a council took the approach that we were going to let folks make their own decisions. We were going to kind of react to what whatever regulatory authorities or health authorities kind of recommended, and we were going to move forward and try and plan accordingly and provide a safe environment for folks as best we could. We all realize that this is not a risk-free situation, unfortunately, in life right now. That you have to make your choices. You have to look at things and make decisions for yourself, for you and your family, what's best and what you're comfortable doing. So, I think moving forward, that's the way I expect to carry on. I know that's not a decision some folks, or not a kind of frame of mind some folks want to deal with or choose to deal with, but that ultimately is their decision until something else kind of comes down the pike that makes it a little easier to decide. So, for the time being, I appreciate Kristen's efforts, Darcy's efforts to make these events as accessible, but I guess safe in light of what folks recommend. And I appreciate the community engaging and keeping engaged and in being responsible. So that's what I'd have to say for that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the same page as Andrew's opening remarks about, excuse me, about the playbook. There really is no playbook. I mean, to compare it to football, you go in the huddle, you generally call one play, and then your next play is based on what down it is and how many yards you have to go. And we're kind of learning by play, or day by day in this case. So, until you rectify some of the big issues out there, and I think school will be the next biggest one, assuming it's gonna be in person someday, that we're gonna get there. I mean, that's gonna be the biggest petri dish of all, and that's gonna be one of the biggest tests. So actually, that's part of a question I've got, Darcy, about, do you have any update on the school situation and what their plan is? I heard it a week ago, but I haven't heard it recently.
I don't have any updates. As far as I know, there hasn't been any changes to the decision that they made a couple of weeks ago at their meeting regarding their plan to start virtually and then watch the data and determine when they'll move into the next phase.
All right, Greg, any comments, questions?
No, I don't have any questions or comments. I think everybody who spoke already said it pretty well. So thanks to the staff again for going forward with the events. My family and I obviously tend to lean on the side of caution, but I appreciate the events going on and all the safety measures that were put in place so that people could still attend them. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg. No, I agree. I think the staff has done very well. We've kept open air ones. We erred on the side of caution early. That was the advice given to us. We pushed back the beer gardens and the food truck events and pushed them back later in summer. And even those were subject to cancellation if there would have been something for a reason to cancel them. And I think fall will work out the same way. We're still planning on the Fall Fest, correct, Kristen? Fall Fest, and I know Halloween Safe Site, the Historical Society isn't going that route, but Trick or Treat's going on, and that's a parental choice. And as Steve said, we'll get guidelines out, best practices on how to experience Halloween this time around, and the tree lighting will happen in some fashion again. So, you know, as long as we can do these things safely and protect those that want to come, we're going to slowly inch our way back to what we knew as normal. May take a little longer, may look a little different, but I think we're doing a good job, and I think Mike summed it up best. You just don't know what's going to happen play to play, or in our case, day to day. So I think we're handling it well. I think we're setting a good example. I think the beer garden was a good example of it. We did have people out there, but families were there, tables were disinfected. You know, the recommendations were there. I think our farmers market is actually a stellar example of what to do. I've gotten very good comments on that. So again, it's just a learning experience as we're moving forward. And, you know, we encourage our businesses as well, as they're having events and they're in a time of difficulty financially, and they're trying to figure out how to get back lost revenue and get consumer confidence back. Best practices is appreciated by the businesses, because the ultimate goal is to get back to where we were. And as Mike said, the schools are the biggest hurdle right now. We have to see where that goes, and no one person can do it together. We really have to do this as a team, and if they're telling us wearing these attractive masks are the way to do it, I say we try it and try to get back as close to where we can be. So people need to be responsible, not only for themselves, but for others at this time. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Here, Dan, if I may.
Yes,
Alderman
please.
Dukniak, 3rd District. Kristen, a question for you. I believe, is there one indoor activity that this city runs? I don't know if it's celebrations or tourism. Wasn't there some type of craft fair that ran in conjunction with the tree lighting?
With the tree lighting. But
so will we handle indoor events differently from the outdoor events?
They've canceled
Okay.
indoor events because, again, they become far harder to manage.
Sure.
A great example of a group really doing the right thing for the benefit of the community is the Lions. This is our traditional Lions Fest weekend. They canceled their festival. I don't ever remember it being canceled in all the time I've been here. They did it for the good of the community because it's just an event that traditionally could not be managed for social distancing. Much different than a beer garden or a farmer's market or something like that. And, you know, that was very prudent on their part, very unselfish of them to do that. So again, it's kind of a case-by-case scenario going on. So
We also had some indoor events, usually wrapped into Fall Festival.
Oh, okay.
And I don't
And
believe
those
we're
will
doing
be-
any of those as well.
Okay.
We had library events. We had some, you know, I think we had chili cook-off in here and things like that. I don't think we're doing any of that either.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Mayor, then
Yes.
everybody, I just want to thank you for the time that we gave this tonight, because it's we're moving into new seasons, and I just wanted us to discuss how we were moving forward and just, take the time. I appreciate everybody,
it's good
everybody's input.
conversation. And one last word, one other event that will take place is voting in the fall. Again, it may look a little bit different. Catherine, you just want to update us on the polling spots again, because I understand the current missed of voting facility by accident.
It did. So for the November presidential election, which is Tuesday, November 3rd, all 6 of the city's polling locations will be open. We will be doing early voting here at City Hall from Tuesday, October 20th through the Saturday, and then again the following week. So there's 2 weeks of early voting here. The next event that I really hope voters take advantage of is we are doing a voter registration day to coincide with the National Voter Registration Day on Tuesday, September 22nd.
Thank you, Catherine. And again, if you're going to take advantage of early voting or the registration day, please wear your mask as you enter City Hall. And it'll help alleviate a lot of work on the day of voting if you get in there early. So please vote. All right. Anything else? Okay. We will move on. We have another informational on item 6, and this is on our annual TID review presentation, which is really going to be informative this time around. It was, if you did your reading, it was well laid out. Andrew?
Sure, let me just bring this up here. I inherited this presentation from our former assistant administrator comptroller, so I know nothing about the transitions that may be in
Okay,
these
then I got to
slides.
give you a dig. No wonder it was so nice. I actually was really impressed.
As Mayor Dan kind of introduced the topic, in our original strategic plan 17 through 20, we had certain objectives in that to really drive home the transparency as it relates to our budget, as relates to our as relates to our tax increment districts in the city. And this is talked about a lot in the community, whether TIDs are a good thing or a bad thing or how they're executed. But one of the things we want to make sure tonight is there's a real baseline knowledge for anybody who may view this, maybe view this recording now or in the future, but also for more of the council's consumption as well as the general public's. Really provide an overview of where we are at with each of our tax increment districts. So, okay, there isn't any transition, so this will be the only slide. Okay, there we go. So we'll go over a little bit about the strategic, obviously denoted in our financial stability section of our strategic plan, critical success factors. Give you a little overview. We'll talk about the status of our TIDs in Oak Creek, and then there's this kind of nuanced discussion we need to have this evening regarding the statutory 12% test. So we'll get through that. And again, in our strategic action plan, you can see there, provide a basic TIF education 101 piece. This presentation actually tries to provide another touch point for a few of these items, whether that be our value proposition, talking about our dollar bill breakdown of actually where our taxes go. There's a lot of people in the community that don't remember all the time when they pay their entire tax bill to the city of Oak Creek that we really only share a relative small slice of that pie. So why do we do this? Financial stability is obviously really important to any business, including the businesses that are the public sector. And this year we eclipsed, all the way to the right, you can see in 2020, $4.2 billion of overall equalized value for our city. Our overall equalized value is our tax base on which we obviously collect taxes. And if you're not growing in a community in Wisconsin, you're dying because you cannot raise sufficient revenues to keep services going or to enhance services in the future. So in the end, the message here is we do this whole tax increment thing. We do engage in economic development activity to just do that, develop the community such that we can sustain and enhance our public services over time. Interestingly, and I don't know that there's one community out there that can boast a 35% growth in tax base. There are communities out there, but not when you start with $3.1 billion tax base. A lot of communities who are growing or have a smaller tax base, a lower part of the fraction to increase, obviously can attain 35%. But just since 2016, we've increased the tax base of the city by $1.1 billion. And that's really remarkable. 35% growth since 2016. So why do we engage in economic development? Why do we do these TID things? It's to keep taxes low and to be able to sustain and enhance services over time. A lot of folks, when they pay their tax bill, nobody likes paying a tax bill. We hear it every year when people come in and pay their tax bill. Really don't like the fact that taxes are a real existence in life, right? Death and taxes. Our tax rate for 2019, payable 20. When you just look at the communities, right? Because there's a lot of jurisdictions that share in that overall tax bill, the school district, the county, the technical college, et cetera, the city. When you just look at what we are doing, the financial decisions we make, we are the third lowest taxed community in Milwaukee County, the third lowest taxed community in Milwaukee County. Now, that's not the entire slice of the pie, so people look at what is my overall tax bill. I don't really just care about what the city of Oak Creek's doing, what decisions they're making. My tax bill is one big bill. When you look at all of those jurisdictions combined, we still fare pretty well in Oak Creek, in the Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District. So this is all jurisdictions by school district in the county, and we are the fourth lowest in all of Milwaukee County. And we are very close to, you can tell there's not a very big margin of difference between the first lowest and where we're at, sitting in the fourth lowest position. So again, just to underscore the point that the city of Oak Creek, in this council making its own financial decisions and its own policy decisions, its own service decisions for the community, we are 29 cents, about 29 cents of every dollar you pay for your tax bill is the city of Oak Creek. So look at it another way. Of your entire tax bill, the city of Oak Creek is only retaining for its services and its people and its events and all those fun things we do, all the quality of life, maintaining our parks, the whole gamut of public services, only 29% of the tax bill. The rest goes out to all of those other taxing jurisdictions. So where does the TIF and where does the TID play in all of this? And just again, basic for the council. I know this is way basic, but when we use the term TIF and TID, it's almost interchangeable, but there is a slight differentiation. But people do make them interchangeable. The TIF is the actual economic development program or tool to help promote local tax base and jobs by using property tax revenues to fund site improvements, and the TID is the actual physical area designated where it is the special actual zone, the geography of the zone we are talking about, an assemblage of properties that create a district. So by the numbers, and I can't underscore this point enough as well, in local government in Wisconsin especially, the tax increment district tool is really an exclusive tool, really the only tool in our municipal toolbox to help spur economic development. We don't have a lot of other interesting taxing jurisdictions, or tax abatements are popular in other states where there's a forgiveness on taxes. We are statutorily prohibited from abating taxes. People do have to pay their taxes, whether they're in a TID or they're not. As of December 31, 2018, the state has approximately 1,238 active tax increment districts. There are 121 of them in Milwaukee County. Admittedly, the city of Milwaukee, very large community, has a lot of them, but every city has at least one TID, but 3 villages do not, and that's Bayside, Fox Point, and River Hills. You can kind of tell where they're at in their evolution as communities, not really in a growth mode. As of December 31, 2018, the property value captured in TIDS was $32.5 billion in the state of Wisconsin. And again, as I mentioned, it's really the only meaningful tool to us. So why do we get a lot of attention for using it? Well, we can't, I mean, there's no better alternative, right? We can't just go down the line and pick out of the toolkit. So it's very popular. And of course, the council knows this community has really created a lot of benefits to the community in increasing the tax base with the use, very intelligent use, in my opinion, of tax increment financing. Some common misconceptions that are out there: creating TIDS will increase taxes. We engage in this activity so we can sustain or even decrease the tax burden in the community. Sustain services or decrease the tax burden. It's a developer's get-rich-quick scheme. We have a lot of situations where in the news you hear about incentives that are given to developers. That is absolutely true, and that is absolutely not unique to the city of Oak Creek. Typically, we like to pay off extraordinary costs, a pipe, a road that needs to be built to spur development, but certainly there are occasions where to fulfill the developer's required pro forma to make a project work, there is a cash incentive to developers. If not for the TIF and the help and the assistance, the project doesn't go forward and the taxes remain at, zero or whatever the case may be. They don't grow. Developers don't pay taxes or we give out free money. I kind of addressed that. General taxpayers of the city are negatively impacted financially by a TID. There are certain service burdens in tax increment districts while those tax increment districts are open. The hope is, as I think the city of Oak Creek has demonstrated, you create a TID, you serve the purpose of the TID, and you try to get out of the TID so you can return those tax dollars to all of the taxing jurisdictions to alleviate the tax burden and have those services that need to be rendered within that new area of development paid for. So how this mechanism really works at its incremental, at its basic level, you create a base value in a certain bounded area of properties, and that is considered the base value of the underlying boundary of assemblage of properties. That is frozen over time. All of the taxing entities get that level of taxes that they had been getting for probably a period of years. And the incremental value is the value above that frozen base value that you use to repay project costs associated with the TID. So as an example of how powerful that tool is, say you have a $15 million property and the full tax revenue is $316,800 at, I think that was last year's tax rate. The city, as we just demonstrated in that dollar bill graphic, would only keep $94,500 for that property if it developed on its own. So let's say that same property is in a TID and you had to spur development. So that $15 million needed to be created yet. If you were to satisfy the but-for test and you go forward with the project with the city's assistance, whether that be building a road or digging a stormwater pond, et cetera, the city via the TID for a period of time keeps the full $316,800 to repay the costs that were required to garner those taxes in the first place. And then when the TID terminates, the idea is to terminate these districts because after termination, all of the other taxing jurisdictions benefit from the higher tax revenues generated when the time from the development when the TID was open. So that's kind of a graphic that's probably been used for 20 years because I've seen it for about 15. And you see how the increment grows, the district closes on the right-hand side of your screen there, the TID is terminated, and then the county, the schools, the tech, and the city or village share in that incremental growth over time. I should add this to the misconception slide. I think a lot of people think that school districts are somehow inhibited or negatively impacted by TIDs. From my experience, and I think the same would go with our partners at Oak Creek Franklin Joint School District, they love these because growth of tax base is really key for them to sustain their services. and they don't have to invest in that growth like the city does. They have to sit back on the sidelines and kind of defer their taxes for a period of time, but they don't have to borrow or incentivize that development. And I think similarly to the other taxing jurisdictions believe the same. So this graphic is just showing a history of closing TIDs early and what associated value was generated. We have usually a statutory life. All of this tax increment finance law is governed by statutes. Usually have about a 20-year life. There's certain occasions where for environmental remediation, you can go longer than that, or you can extend a 20-year district by 3 years. We've had a pretty good track record of closing TIFs early and getting the general benefit of the tax base growth to all the jurisdictions. So I mentioned there was a little bit of a nuance this year, and in the statutes that govern tax increment financing, there is what they call a 12% test. The legislature, can't even remember when, but for many years now, they've had a 12% test that says the city or village can only have 12% of incremental value, the new value generated in TIDs, can only have 12% of their overall equalized value locked in tax increment districts, meaning the increment generated, not the underlying base value. In the city of Oak Creek, we've been at 6%. We were at, I think, 8.8% last year when I looked at this. For the first time in our history, we have exceeded that 12% test. Now, I will qualify this by saying I don't know that there's any wisdom in the law that says 12% is any sort of a magic number. However, it is a limitation. And the only reason we have even come close and eclipsed this 12%, and you'll see this a little bit later on too, is TID 16. TID 16 is the Ryan Business Park. In one fell swoop, we had a $118 million valuation in Amazon. That is the only reason that we have would ever approach this 12% test with current facts and figures. Now, I think that the 12% is to ensure that there's enough out of TID equalized tax base to support services in the community. And this dovetails into another point about developers or businesses not paying taxes. Amazon will be paying a lot of taxes to this community for a long period of time. Not only to this community, but to the school district, to the county, to the technical school, et cetera. If you apply this year's tax rate to Amazon's value, which isn't even fully valued yet, there'll be another valuation on here as they're fully built out. That's somewhere between $2.5 and $2.7 million of taxes annually. So these businesses that develop in TIDs and that have a development agreement with the city absolutely pay their taxes. Those taxes will, in the case of Amazon, maybe be diverted for a period of time. For instance, we have infrastructure to pay for, and that in that scenario, Amazon actually fronted all of the infrastructure and we're paying them back over time. In, I think, probably 8 to 10 years, where we thought it might be 10 to 12 years, that Amazon infrastructure will be paid off, and this TID will likely close, and we will benefit from an immense amount of tax base from that development. This is by far the largest taxpayer in our community. I think the next one is shy of $60 million for any frame of reference there. Let me go back. So what is the limitation of the 12% test? Once you've exceeded 12% of your equalized value, you cannot create a new TID, and you cannot add territory to an existing TID until you fall below that 12%. This is just fine in our community. We have a TID out at our lakefront. We have a TID around IKEA, and on the east side of the Drexel Avenue I-94 interchange, we have Ryan Business Park. We still need to build out Oakview Business Park. We have plenty of work to do in the meantime. So I think this is actually a really good way to help control growth in the community. as a silver lining.
Excuse me. So really, that's the only penalty for being
That is.
non-compliant.
Yeah.
We can't make bigger any of the districts.
There's no, there's no financial hits or anything like that to the taxpayers at all, by any
Thank
means. Yep. And we're plenty busy in our existing TIDs. So a lot has been said, and this will be a slide that we share every year. A lot has been said about the investment-minded approach that this council and really immediately previous councils have taken to grow infrastructure, to grow tax base, and to invest in that tax base growth. A lot of people have, concerns about the level of debt that the city has taken on since approximately 2010, 2012. And that's true. The city has taken on a lot of general obligation debt. But this slide is intended to show the funding sources for those debts are largely the We Energies mitigation money, as you can see WEPCO there. TID 11, that's the Drexel Town Square. All of the TIDs that you see here are supporting those debts by themselves, right? And they're in great shape to pay themselves off, where they don't burden the general taxpayers of the city. The only portion that is part of the tax bill, if you want to look at it that way, levied amount on your property tax levy, less than 1% of that 1% or less of that GO debt is attributable to the general taxpayers of the city. That's like remarkable. It's a remarkable slide, and we'll try to make that continue as long as we can, of course. Just a summary here of all of our open TIFs. We have 3, 6, 9, 10 open TIFs, TIDs in the city, and you can kind of see where they're located. We'll get into each of them in a little more detail, and I'll go through these slides pretty quickly. TID 6 is an industrial park generally located on the west side of South 13th Street between West Ryan Road and West Oakwood. It was created in 2000, and it's set to close in 2023. This is our TID 6. You can see how the growth has jumped up a little bit over time and stabilized here the last few years. There's really only a few parcels remaining in this district, but this district was really kept open to serve as a donor TID to TID number 13, which is our Lakefront district. Otherwise, we would have closed this district already, and we will be closing that in the next 2 years. Last year is the next, the final donation to TID 13. TID 7, a light industrial park bound by I-94, Drexel Avenue, 27th Street in the Milwaukee County border. This is by far our largest geographic district. It's huge. It's along 27th Street. It was created in 2007. You can see TID 7 had some lean years there. It was right after the housing bubble. You can see in 10, 11, and 12. This district has incredibly taken off. There's a few other projects potentials that remain in this district. This district will handily pay off its debts, and I'd ask the council to put a placeholder in this, because TID 7 will be a strategy for us moving forward financially before that district closes in 2027. Because of the value that's been generated, we have the ability to do some things with debt that's being currently levied in the property tax levy. And that is for the Drexel Avenue interchange and the 27th Street improvements of 2010, 2012, somewhere in that range. So there's a lot of opportunity there. We'll talk more about those at budget time. TID 8 is our Oakview Business Park. I think most folks know where that is. Again, a really good story here with increment being generated in TID 8. Its statutory life is said to close in 1/9 of 2029, so we have a little bit to go. We have some obligations to pay off in that district, but as you can see, the immense growth and increment here should make readily available the city, this district, to meet those obligations and then do some strategic things in the future. TID 10 is our master lock. You can see the increment there. This is set to close in 2030. I don't exactly know how long we have to go on the master lock payments and the PAYGO. You can see there's one active PAYGO development agreement in the district for master lock. I'm not exactly sure when that is set to expire. I have to check on that. TID 11, Drexel Town Square. You can see increment as of 1/1 ballooned now to 164 million, 164.2 million. That increment supports the balance, large number of general obligation debt, that $44 million remaining. That increment will pay for that over time. TID 11, as is really TID 8, is one of those districts where it'll be really difficult to close down early, just given how tight financially it has been. But both of those will pay off their obligations with no impact to the general taxpayers of the city. It will just take pretty much the life of those districts. I would hazard a guess, I probably will not be here in when does the Lakefront District close? 27 years from 2016. Is that 2043? Is my math right there? I don't know if even I'll be here then. Could be. Depends if you'll have me. TID 12 is IKEA. Interesting story on this one. This boundary expanded to include the east side of the Drexel Avenue interchange, the northeast quadrant, and that is that Highgate development. And there are some pending projects in here. We have not taken out any debt yet that's been put out the door. We do have one pending development agreement for Stand Rock Hospitality, which we hope we can finalize in spring and get that going. TID 13 is our lakefront. Really excited about the lakefront. We're going to be talking about this development for many years to come. And given the challenges of the lakefront from its environmental legacy, a tax increment is going to be a really powerful tool in here to really get things done. And we don't have, as the council knows, we're working on various developments. We'll have an agenda item later on to talk about preparing some additional property for development via an environmental cap, starting the environmental cap to the north on the North Bluff. We will be talking about this area for many years to come here, and it will be special. TID 14, very much a singular district parcel. We have one active development agreement, which was a combination of Upfront and Pago. This is a speculative industrial building that has been fully built. There's no other parcels in this district, so when we pay off our general obligation debts to support that, this was also an environmental cleanup. We will be able to close that district. TID 15. This is just north of Drexel Town Square, where the new Aldi and Roth Heating and Cooling, as well as the building that houses Time Warner Cable and the Ear, Nose, and Throat Doctor. This is very much a small parcel. There are a very small district. There are development potentials on the two parcels to the east, but we don't really see this one expanding, and we could very likely relatively close this one out relatively quickly after the obligations are met. And then I mentioned this before, the Ryan Business Park, which had the significant increase in increment due to the $118 million of valuation brought to the city by the Amazon development, was a newly created district in 2018. And we should be able to get out of that district well before the termination date of 2038. That'd be surprising if we did not, but you never know what the future holds. We could, again, strategically use this district while it's open, since we'll be paying Amazon off quickly, and see what other benefits the city could take part in as this district is open. Again, one active Pago development for the Amazon. So that's kind of the rundown on where we're at. I can't stress enough that all of our districts are financially healthy. We would probably have a much different discussion if a few of them were not, but they all are projected to have or will be projected to meet their obligations. And again, I think that this community really does use the tax increment tool pretty intelligently. We have development agreements supporting all of the investments that we make that protect the city appropriately and accordingly. So with that, I'll just turn it over if anybody has any questions.
Questions for Andrew?
We'll explain.
Anybody? Greg, anything from you?
No questions. Thank you. That was very thorough.
Oh, it was very well done. And, in one of the early slides that showed our evaluation at $3.1 billion back in 2016, and we ballooned up to 4.2 in 2020. So Andrew, just for the public's perspective, without this TIF tool that we used. And without this growth, where would our services be, and how would we have supported that with levy freezes, shared revenues being cut? How would it affected the general public?
So I did the math on this, so don't quote me, and if you'd like the math on it, I valued all of the tax increment districts that we've opened and closed and what those values were that were generated, as well as all of those we have active, which is kind of that 12% test. And it was something like 16% of our overall tax base. So I don't exactly know where we would be, Mayor, if we didn't have 16% of our entire tax base. But let's say we're in a much better spot for having that 16% additional tax base. When you're talking about 16% of 4.2 billion, that's a sizable chunk of
Yes, thank
tax
you.
base.
And our services reflect that. We haven't had a drop off in service, through even the lean years there with the recession and everything else. So.
Andrew, I don't know if there's a creative and then sort of briefer way to share that with the public, but it'd be, if it can find a way that'd be maybe useful to some folks out in the community.
Sure.
I really enjoyed the presentation. As Greg said, it was very thorough, very understandable to the average person. So again, I think that's, I'm not going to say great reading for everybody, but it is very informative for those people that wonder why we do some of the things we do. Nothing else, we will move on to health and item 7. Consideration of a resolution approving a service agreement between the Oak Creek Public Health Department and Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management and Medical Service Division for the provision of medical services. So, Darcy?
Hi, good evening. Darcy Du Bois, Health Officer with the City of Oak Creek. I am requesting that the council consider approval of the service agreement between the Health Department and Milwaukee County OEM for medical services, specifically COVID-19 testing. Local health departments have been tasked by the State Department of Health Services to assure access to testing for all residents in their community. And the state has allocated grant funding to each local health department to support those testing efforts. The amount of funding we received here in Oak Creek is just under $73,000 for COVID-19 testing. Here in the Milwaukee County area, we've been really fortunate to have 2 long-standing National Guard testing sites that have been providing very accessible free testing to anyone who needs a test since, I believe, May. But we have been informed that those sites will cease operation in early October, which necessitates the development of an alternate plan to assure that our community continues to have easy access to testing. That testing could be in response to a cluster or an outbreak at a workplace or a living facility, but it also could just be general testing if we find that our residents are struggling to access testing in an accessible manner. The health department does not currently have the staffing or resource capacity to provide the testing at the level our community could potentially need it, and so therefore we did need to seek out a partner who could provide some of that testing for us. The Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management does have emergency medical staff available who are qualified to perform the testing, and the county has developed a plan to provide testing services to municipalities or regions across the county. We would fund the testing provided by OEM with that state grant funding that we received, and the agreement that we've provided tonight really outlines a framework of responsibilities for the health department and the county, as well as the fee structure to implement testing as needed here in Oak Creek. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Darcy? Nothing to my right. Anything left?
Darcy, do you anticipate those will be randomized, or is that going to be by appointment only, or how are you going to maintain a healthy level of testing capability for you don't have essentially a drive-up opportunity for folks out there? So even Freighter, they advertise the site right on the property here. That's a appointment only kind of testing. So really, if you're really looking to make sure you got a good grasp on what's going on, you need readily accessible testing in good quantity. So I'm wondering, this grant doesn't strike me as a lot of money. So I'm wondering how we're going to really provide for the community, especially after the National Guard goes away in October.
Right. I think that is going to be a real challenge, and it's something that we're talking about every day with other health departments across the region. Our goal is to maintain no barrier testing, which is what we would call the current National Guard site. You don't need an appointment. It's free. Anyone can access it who is interested or in need of a test. And we really want to maintain that level of testing. Our hope is that there might be one or two sites like the current National Guard sites, staffed either by OEM or another partner who has that ability, that would be open all of the time at a location, an accessible location in the county, and that we would be able to supplement that with some local testing as needed here in Oak Creek or with in our neighboring communities. But we are really committed to keeping that level of accessible testing for the long term.
Yeah, just to clarify, the federal government is covering the cost of actually processing the test still?
Right. So the funding that we have is actually CARES funding that came from the federal government, filtered through the state. And the labs, there's a variety of different labs that are doing testing, and those have different levels of, payment. The state lab, for example, will do fee exempt testing. Some of the private labs are charging. So that's something that we'll have to work out. But we anticipate having access to fee exempt or very low cost lab services.
Greg, anything from you?
No, thank you. I don't have any questions.
Nothing? Okay, no further questions. Motion, please.
Kirkowski will make a motion to approve resolution number 12183-090120, a resolution approving a service agreement between the Oak Creek Public Health Department and Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management Medical Services Division for the provision of medical services.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call. Oh,
sorry
sorry,
to interrupt.
Melissa.
Can I just ask, I think this is resolution number 12187 as in the council report. And the next item is 12183.
Oh, yep,
I apologize, Alderman Kirkowski. It was going so well.
that is correct.
Okay,
Yeah, 12187.
Okay,
So if you were so inclined to.
yeah, I see
amend
how
your
that's,
motion.
all right, I was going off the agenda, but okay. Kirkowski will make a motion to approve resolution number 12187-090120, a resolution approving a service agreement between the Oak Creek Public Health Department and Milwaukee County Office of Emergency Management Medical Services Division for the provision of medical services.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Item 8 is consideration of a resolution approving a certified survey map for the properties at 101 and 111 West Oakview Parkway. Evening, Doug.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Common Council. Doug Seymour, Director of Community Development. And this is a certified survey map that combines the properties at 101 and 111 West Oakview Parkway. During the early presentation about TIFs and TIDs, it was mentioned that this was part of TID District number 8. And this is really a great example of how we can leverage investments made in TIDs to bring in growing companies that provide employment opportunities, as well as knock off a number of the different goals and objectives of the city and its strategic plan. Such is the case with Stella and Chewy's, who was one of the earlier orders of the district and one of the earlier entrants in the district. And as that company has grown, they are growing along with the district, and in fact are making a substantial addition and investment in the community with several, I think upwards of 100 new jobs. And as part of that, they have purchased a property, adjacent property in the Oakview Business Park, which is the 101 property, on which they're expanding not only the building, but their employee parking. So this accomplishes that task of combining those two properties into one property, which is then what will be used for the expansion of Stella and Chewy's. That can answer any questions.
Questions for Doug on the expansion in the CSM? Greg, anything out there on your end?
No, thank you.
Okay. Seeing none, motion?
Yeah, we'll move to approve a resolution 12183-090120, a resolution approving a certified survey map submitted by Deborah Kessler, STS Oak Creek LLC for the properties on 101 and 111 West Oakview Parkway.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call?
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
And item 9 is Sure, go ahead, Ken. Item 9 is consideration of a resolution approving a drainage easement on the property at 3280 East Oakwood Road. Evening, Mike.
Hello, Mayor. Thank you very much. So this was, oh, go ahead. I think the applicant is on the call.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you want me to introduce the topic, or did you want to speak, Mr. DeWitt?
No, feel free.
Okay, thank you. So staff was working with the applicant listed here as Laverne Bears, but I think Mr. DeWitt was kind of the representative working closely with staff on the issue at hand here, which is a drainage easement. At the last council meeting, council approved a CSM that was proposed by the property owner. And there were some conditions to that, and one of those was that this drainage easement get worked out. And so the direction to staff was to keep on this issue. And later on that week, that I was told by Matt Sullivan, who was working closely with Mr. DeWitt and with the city attorney Carls, was that they were able to iron out the remainder of the language and come to some agreeable terms. And so the recommendation here is that the easement be accepted and entered into by the city. And any questions, Melissa or I? We'll try to answer them.
Just to give you some background in planning, we did come through. There were some language issues on the easement on the property. The city very much needs to have access to that easement, so it was quite a little bit of a negotiation point for the city to retain that in the future to protect the subdivision, I believe, to the north. And Mike, that's your district.
Right.
It tends to be a little soggy down there, so we really wanted to make sure that we protected that easement. And Mr. DeWitt did have some concerns regarding access to it and the farming. So we kind of came through and we didn't quite have the language. And Melissa, I trust it's all in order now.
Yeah, I would just concur with everything that Mike Simmons said. I think that Matt Sullivan and Mr. DeWitt were able to, I think the next day after our last council meeting or the day thereafter, just massage some of the verbiage to make sure that everyone's comfortable and of equal understanding as to what would transpire if ever it is needed for the city to come onto that property.
Okay. And Mr. DeWitt, it's all amenable to you, correct?
Yes, I mean, we still had some concerns with some of the aspect of it, but I think this comes to the middle of a road. So we're in agreement with it, yes.
Well, good. I'm glad you could work with staff. And again, I just want to pat staff on the back because we get into these situations sometimes. And whether it's communication error or things are less than perfect, they really go out of their way in a timely manner to get it resolved. In this case, I think it was maybe Matt Sullivan that worked on it. So again, I think we came to a really good conclusion on it.
Right, I would agree.
Okay. Can we take a vote without Ken here?
We've got 4.
Can we?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to adopt resolution number 12185, a resolution approving a drainage easement with Laverne Bores located at 3280 East Oakwood Road.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Yeah, forgot Greg was out there. I'm looking around. I'm like, we're a little light.
Just want to add, Mayor,
Yes.
thank you to staff, Mike, and I know Melissa had work on this and Matt. So thanks a lot for working with Mr. DeWitt. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Mr. DeWitt, for working with staff as well. Realize it was a little bit bumpy, but got through it. Item 11 is consideration of a motion to enter into an agreement with Edgerton Contractors for the design build services for a project for the Lake Vista North property at 8940 South 5th Street. Mike, if you would, please.
We can. I think we skipped over item 10, but if we can,
Yeah.
we can do 11 and go back.
We missed one here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're correct. I did. Actually, let's go back to 10. Resolution approving an amendment to the access and utility easement agreement with Emerald Row.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. I don't think I was sharing it correctly per Kevin's advice to me. Kevin, am I on the screen here with the
There we go.
graphic? Okay, thank you. So basically, this was Melissa did all the legwork on this. It got placed under engineering on the agenda. I told her I would just kind of explain it. It's pretty straightforward. The previous easement it was created when Emerald Row Phase 1, the existing apartment building that's now occupied, was constructed, and the parking lot to the south of that building was constructed along with it. There was an easement created that encompassed a private sidewalk that went along the south side of that parking lot, and it basically was the public access easement. So folks that are in the town square could easily cross the street, really at the intersection of Clock Tower and 6th Street, and proceed legally then in that pedestrian easement along that sidewalk and get to the wetland park in Emerald Preserve. And with the development now of the building to the south, Emerald Row Phase 2, or more appropriately Parterre, that easement needed to be altered slightly, and that's what you're seeing on the graphic, is that it still encompasses that sidewalk, but then it does, as it gets to the closer to the park side, on the west end, it does a jog that gets pedestrians around a feature there, which is really the entrance to the underground parking for Parterre. Melissa, I don't know if there's anything to add, but basically that was the intent of this altered easement.
Melissa, anything?
I think, as the mayor says, Mike said it all very well. He made it sound much more interesting on the technical end of things. We always knew that we were going to get to this point when subsequent phases of this development would be where we are today. So I think the fact of it is, this is putting in place what we knew and what is coming to be. So it's that simple.
Okay. No further questions? Motion, please.
Lorik will move to approve resolution number 12186-090120, a resolution approving an amendment to the access and utility easement agreement with Emerald Row LLC.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye. Now we'll do 11. I think I jumped there because I was just so excited. I think it's a great opportunity for Lake Vista. So again, we'll consider a motion to move into an agreement with Edgerton Contractors for design build services for the project at Lake Vista North property at 8940 South 5th. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just, gonna try to share my screen again here. Let's see what we got here. Kevin, can you tell me if I'm sharing properly?
Got the map.
Okay. All right. So great. So that's what I'm trying to show you. So this is the what is referred to as Lake Vista North site, also formerly known as the Peter Cooper site. It is a large parcel that's been the target of more lakefront redevelopment. And what you see here is a graphic that shows some red and blue shaded areas, and then the bluff on the east side of the parcel. Those are 3 city-owned parcels out there that are targeted for public open space eventually. And then to the west, that you can see with my cursor here, is Wisp Park owned property. And what we're working towards the next step in redeveloping these properties. They've long been targeted for environmental remediation, and then of course ultimately developed into public open space on the city parcels, and then hopefully some meaningful redevelopment on the what is currently the Wisp Park property. So to that end, we've been working with environmental consultants and with local contractor Edgerton on what we can do to move this forward. It's been kind of a slow moving process at this point. And Sue Winnan from our department was working diligently trying to move this forward, and was able to engage with MMSD. They are undertaking a large stormwater pond project in the city of Milwaukee, and we've been working on getting a deal done to secure a large volume of what has already been sampled and tested and determined to be clean material, which is exactly what this site needs. It needs to be graded to drain, and it needs to be clean soil capped. And so these are processes that we've been involved with the DNR to get approval for that for years now. And we do have this opportunity. We are very close to intergovernmental cooperation agreement with MMSD to get somewhere between 265,000 and 300,000 cubic yards of clean soil hauled to the site free of charge, and that is really what we've been waiting for. And it is a very rare opportunity that we think really needs to be taken advantage of. Looking back at some of the unit costs we had on the Lake Vista Park project when we ran out of that clean stockpile of soil and we had to bring some in, we were paying $13 a cubic yard for that soil. That's because that's excavating, hauling, and then depositing. And if we calculate that versus what we need here, we're talking $3 million of savings. So we need to do work. We need to do it in fairly short order to get this site prepared to take that clean soil, which is coming in the spring of 2021. And so we've got a proposal for a professional service agreement with Edgerton for them to come in and do that prep on the city properties here. The work entails mass clearing and grubbing of the site, grading to a plan that's been created that will drain this site ultimately. Get it to subgrade. That is, let's get it down 2 feet so that it could take 18 inches of that clean fill that would be coming, and then 6 inches of topsoil. They also will do erosion control. They need to construct a very sturdy access road, and it's kind of shown on this graphic here. If you follow my cursor, it would be coming. The trucks would come down Depot Road and then enter the site on kind of the southeast corner, clipping the southeast corner of the West Park property, and then in and up north to the final location of where these trucks will be dumping. And if you follow the graphic, oops, sorry, I'm a little far here. That road needs to be fairly wide and it needs to be fairly sturdy because it's going to be taking anywhere between 26,000 and 30,000 trucks coming in using both directions. So it's going to be, they're going to be coming very frequently during this project, and we need to be ready for them. That's all part of the agreement with MMSD, is that we have to have a site that's prepared for them. We cannot be holding their contract to that. So that's the urgency in this, again, but it's also the opportunity. So that's the impetus for why we're trying to get this agreement going and really get the contractor mobilized out on the site. So, you know, I've got a lot of other information here. If you've got questions, I can answer them for you.
Mike, if I could just summarize this is Andrew, summarize this in a fashion it the way we did with Lake Vista South, if we want to keep going with north and south. We had environmental conditions. We needed to fulfill obligations for environmental capping for those properties to create parks and open spaces and future development property potential. We found a massive source of soil with the Mitchell Interchange project. It was very opportune. I don't remember what the benefits financially were at that time, but obviously substantial. I wasn't here. And really put us over the point where it made a ton of sense to move forward with that project. We are really at that same spot in time with Lake Vista North. If this source of soil were to, you know, the project were not to move forward or whatever, if we were not supposed to, if we were not getting the source of soil in partnership with MMSD, we would need to spend this $426,000 anyway to prepare our site for soil when it would be identified. Or, as Mike suggested, we would have to go out and source the soil at, I think you mentioned like $13 a cubic yard, Mike, right. $3 million. This soil, this intergovernmental cooperation agreement will come before the council next meeting, I believe is the goal, to kind of cement that. Significant savings. There will be additional costs in the springtime to receive and place the site to where, or the soil on the site to where it needs to be. That's probably in the $900,000 to $1 million range. However, as we just said, if we don't take advantage of this soil, it's never going to be cheaper for the city of Oak Creek to be able to put this needed environmental cap on this property and create some more public open spaces on the lakefront, as well as partner with West Park in the future to develop that commercially or otherwise out there. So that's been the goal all along with this piece of property, and we have this really rare opportunity where, in the end, you know, you'll be telling me that I need to figure out where the extra $900,000 comes from in the spring, and we'll be prepared to do that. So,
excellent. Questions, comments, Mike?
Yeah. I see there's a dust control plan here, Mike. From what I'm reading here, it looks like, is Edgerton going to be the main controlling interest here as far as the mess that's going to be? I mean, it's inevitable there's going to be a problem. So is Edgerton going to step up on that issue, or?
They are, and included in their proposal for this is it's broken out that they have dust control as identified as an identified task, and we as we work through them through this with them, you know, they understand the importance of that, and they worked on a lot of the Lake Vista South Side state when Epic Polymers stabilized their bluffs in the early 2000s, and then when DuPont did their clean capping, that was Edgerton again, and then when we did Lake Vista Park, that was Edgerton yet again. So they know these sites. They've been dealing with the dust control issues. Now I know there's been dust control issues on Fifth Ave. I know West Park had various contractors bringing the soil to the site, and they needed to be reminded to keep that clean out there. Now what we have happening with this that we didn't have on those others is that those contractors were entering the site directly off of Fifth Avenue. What we're going to do here is we're going to have those trucks running down Depot Road, which everybody knows is basically a vacant road at this point. And then they're going to access off the east end of Depot Road before they get on that site. So, you know, they have provisions for a tracking pad. We're going to keep on them as far as keeping that maintained. But then they also will have that long stretch of Depot Road that, you know, if it gets dusty, it's not going to be an immediate issue for, the properties that are vacant on both sides. Nonetheless, we will stay on them as far as keeping that clean.
Does that access road that crosses part of West Park's property?
It does. Let me bring that back up. So there, the property line is, if you can see my cursor, is basically here. It's kind of a red dashed line, and we need to get them off the road at this point, and really take this alignment. Edgerton helped us come up with this alignment because they knew what we needed as far as providing adequate turning radiuses for these trucks, particularly if they're going to be going in two directions and passing each other. What you see here in red dots, that outlines actually an access easement that the city has with High Night, which is this other parcel here. But as we looked at that, it was not possible for the trucks to make this 90-degree turn and stay within that boundary. So we've got an access agreement being drawn up, and it's really close to being finalized with West Park to provide this. Now West Park's on board. I mean, this is an opportunity for them as well to get some of this excess clean soil, because they need to cap their site as well to get it prepped eventually for redevelopment purposes. So this is a partnership.
Oh, there's a cost share on that road with West Park or not?
Not there. There is not. We are. They're just allowing us to. They're allowing us to cross their property, and there will be excess soil that they can use as they cap their site. We're getting a lot of soil from MMSD. We're getting enough to cap our site, to cap at least a fair share of West Park site, and then also a stockpile of soil that can be used as a bluff stabilization project in the coming years.
Was West Park ever approached on a cost share? I mean, that road's going to benefit them too, right?
It will,
That ever talked about, Andrew? Do you?
I mean, I'd defer to Mike if there was any talk of a cost share on the roadway. the road is about $160,000 of the cost we're looking at now. And we need this easement from West Park to utilize the roadway in an appropriate fashion. Otherwise, they could certainly have said no, and we would have been trying to get a hold of High Night somehow to get that access easement enhanced that Mike was talking about, and that would have been a tougher road to hoe. I think, cost sharing is I don't know that if, for instance, West Park were working directly with MMSD, that they would need this for their site. So I think Mike, if you could shed any more light on that, but I just don't know how much of an immediate.
That's an excellent. That's an excellent point, Andrew. I mean, West Park they have access to Fifth Avenue, and we either work out a deal to cross their property to get this oil to our site from Fifth Avenue, or we go down Depot Road. We thought for the benefit of the public and the dust and all of the truck hauling, let's get them off of Fifth Avenue just as quickly as possible. Depot Road was the logical choice, but you're right, Andrew, and that is an excellent point. If West Park was getting the soil themselves, they wouldn't be obligated to go down Depot Road. They could come right off of Fifth Avenue because they've got a driveway right there. So, I think that their feeling is that they're accommodating us with this, and they are.
Good answer.
Okay. Steve?
Mike, on the prior to the trucks turning on the Depot Road, do they have a designated route that they're going to be coming down?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, they certainly do. They will be required to take Highway 100 and then follow that as across the Chicago Road, which was at one time referred to as Fifth Avenue Extended. I think it's now Lake Vista Boulevard. And then and continue up Fifth Avenue to Depot.
Okay, and this is not my district, but I do have contact from a property owner who has multiple rental units in the Carrollville area, and I've tried to direct him over to Alderman Toman, but he seems to think that I'm the good person to talk to because he sees me at church, which is kind of a benefit of not going to church for the last 4 months in person. So I think you know who I'm talking about. So when he finally sees me at church, I'm going to let him know that the trucks, because I know he's going to have a fit with all these trucks coming in there. But thank you.
And I have had a conversation with him already. I was out there. We were out there checking out the site, and he stopped by, and we told him what we were trying to do and the timing of it, and we did explain Depot Road, and he was relieved to hear that because I know it's the person that manages properties that is calling when the trucks come out and right on that Fifth Avenue gate. And are creating dust. So this will benefit them. I mean, it's getting them off of Fifth Avenue, basically immediately south before it crosses all of his properties.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, motion.
Someone will make a motion to enter into an agreement with Edgerton Contractors Incorporated for design/build services project for the Lake Vista North property at 8940 South Fifth Avenue.
Kirkowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
And item 12 is informational. It's our summarized treasurer's report for the month ending July 31st, 2020. Is Barb with us tonight?
I am. Can you not?
It was earlier, yeah.
Okay. Can you not
Okay,
see me?
No, I don't see on the screen, Barb, but
Well,
glad you're with us.
Mike's screen is still being shared, so I don't know if that's why.
Good idea.
Huh.
A nice smile.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to work. Sorry.
It's okay.
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
All right. All right, so this is the Treasury Report on Investment in Banking for the month ending July 31st, 2020. Our beginning balance was $40,911,344.96. Our ending balance is $44,605,230.66. We had interest earned of $36,082.76. And our increase from beginning to ending balance was $885.70. Some of the larger activity, we had tax collection of $196,314. We received our general transportation aid of $682,464. Fire dues, $145,945. We had a shared revenue payment of $1,180,110. Our school tax credit of $5,221,699. We had a first dollar credit of $604,969, and our exempt computer aid of $184,149.
Oh, questions for Barb? At the normal time this all comes in, Barb? Those are some pretty big aid numbers.
Yep, that is normal. Mm-hmm.
Glad to see the COVID didn't delay that.
Yeah, you and me both.
So, is that it for Barb?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening, Barb.
Thanks, you too.
Item 13 concerns fire, and it is consideration of a motion to amend the Emergency Medical Service Intergovernmental Agreement, and we have Chief Kresick with us.
Good evening, Mike Kresick, Fire Chief, and tonight the Fire Department is going to request approval of Amendment Number 2 to the Intergovernmental Agreement between Milwaukee County and the City of Oak Creek for provision of emergency medical services. A little bit of background on the Intergovernmental Agreement. Less formally, it was known as a paramedic contract. This Intergovernmental Agreement sets the framework for the provision of emergency medical services in Milwaukee County, and specifically advanced life support or paramedic level emergency medical services. The Office of EMS under the Office of Emergency Management in Milwaukee County provides oversight through the provision of medical direction, quality assurance, and education for the paramedics in Milwaukee County. This IGA, the current IGA we are requesting the amendment for, like past agreement, also provides a funding mechanism for the communities that host paramedic units in those particular communities. The current IGA was approved for the years 2017 and 2018. Amendment number 1 extended that IGA 2019 and 2020. The amendment in front of you tonight, Amendment number 2, extends the IGA for 5 years through 2025. This amendment continues the formula method for the disbursement of funding to the City of Oak Creek for the provision of ALS services. It also includes some updated analysis of saturation numbers for the number of paramedics to be funded in each particular municipality, and also establishes some performance metrics that departments must maintain in order to be compliant with the intergovernmental agreement. This amendment has been vetted by the Milwaukee County Association of Fire Chiefs and approved. It has been vetted by the ICC and approved by the Milwaukee County Board. And tonight we're bringing the agreement in front of you for approval of this particular amendment. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mike, any questions? No? Ken, anything?
Nope, good then.
Steve?
Chief Kresick, how many, is there a number, a limitation on amendments? It's unimportant, it's just a curious question. I mean, how I mean, do we have to stop at 2, 5, 10, or just wondering? We can go on it forever.
So-
It's okay with me. I just want to know.
So my fire chief answer is probably not.
Okay.
You know, the amendments are created as issues or circumstances are identified in the county system.
Okay.
And they are addressed through, you know, if the current agreement is sound and no major structural changes are required, the amendment would be the efficient way to extend the life of that agreement while modifying it for particular circumstances.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Rich, anything?
No.
Greg, anything from you?
No, thank you.
No, I have no questions either. Again, it's a sound agreement. It's been in place. So, seeing none, motion.
Bill, move to approve an amendment to the Emergency Medical Services Intergovernmental Agreement.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
And item 14 is the License Committee. I will turn that over to Alderman Kirkowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I trust everybody's had an opportunity to review the License Committee report for tonight's meeting. Does anybody have any questions, cares, or concerns? No. Seeing none, then Kirkowski will make a motion to grant the various license requests as listed on the September 1st, 2020 License Committee report.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
And item 15 is our vendor summary report. If everybody take a look, and if you have some questions, we'll get it to the appropriate person to answer. See, we got our elevator fixed.
Oh,
It's a little workaround voting time without
It's
the
the little
elevator.
things that really make a difference.
Everybody's satisfied? If there's no questions, motion.
Bill, move to approve the August 26, 2020 vendor summary report in the total amount of $523,378.99.
Kirkowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Kirkowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
That'll get us to adjournment. And before we adjourn, I'd like to wish everybody a safe and happy Labor Day weekend. Please take some time for yourself. Everybody's been working very hard this year and very different this year. So this Labor Day takes on a whole different meaning for people that have been at home and doing things with their families educationally and care-wise and everything else. So that labor counts just as well as the labor we do out in the community and everywhere else. So happy Labor Day to everybody. And with that, adjournment, please.
Kirkowski make a motion to adjourn.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Toman.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Kirkowski.
Aye.
All right, good night, everybody.